It's time that we all begin to stand in the beauty of who we are. Because remember, you're beautiful, you're lovable, and you're capable. And remember this, I am empowered to heal the painful parts of my life. How to be empowered to heal the painful parts of life. Hi, friends, it's Dianne here, and I want to talk today about something that's very important, and that is how do we rectify or how do we heal the painful parts of our life? I use empowerment to help people heal the painful parts of their life, along with other strategies. Now, I've been known for my work in the grief space and grief recovery space now, I think since the late 80s. So I've had a lot of experience and understanding here, but I also want to share that empowerment and being empowered to stand in your agency and your authority really helps the situation. So, first, I want to start out with defining grief, defining what I'm talking about, and then I'm going to read a little bit about empowerment and healing to see if you resonate with it. If you do, then keep on listening. If you don't, then maybe share this with somebody who will resonate with it. So, grief is a conflicting mass of human emotion following any significant change of behavior. Now, we live in a culture that tries to deny our emotions and our feelings. We overemphasize intellect typically. I know these are sweeping comments. And I also see that what happens is we think we should grieve alone and that it should be no big deal. Like, just suit up and show up and keep on going. Well, that old stoic way doesn't work for us anymore. See, the world has evolved. Our consciousness has evolved since those days. Sadly, many people have not evolved since those days, since, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. And so what happens is when we try to hold on to the old way, we become angry and controlling and mean to ourselves and others. And then we begin to blame everyone. Well, really, it's not about blame. It's about rectifying or realigning or healing, whatever word you want to use. I tend not to use the word heal as much because it implies something's wrong with you. And what I want to say is nothing's wrong. No one ever taught you, or you've never used the skills to free yourself from that bondage of that form of human ignorance. It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because nobody taught you, or you've not taken the opportunity to do something different. So I want to read for you something I wrote a long time ago about using empowerment to help us heal the painful parts of our life. So the affirmation or the one-liner that you can say to yourself over and over if you want to, something that I've used when I've had extreme pain, is I am empowered to heal the painful parts of my life. You are empowered to heal what you need to heal, just like I am. So it's important that we use first person present tense, I am sentences to remind us that we're the ones in charge and we do not have to play victim. So it goes like this. I'm empowered to heal the painful parts of my life. My life as a child was painful. To survive, I constructed a reality for myself built on wishes and dreams. After a while, I began to live as if my fantasy were real. Living in a fantasy allowed me to deny some of the truths about my life. Now, that is a coping skill that many children use. It is not necessarily wrong, but it's something to pay attention to. It's time now to stop pretending. I know that if I continue to pretend things are different or better than they really are, I will never resolve my hurt. My living in fantasy only puts off my grieving and my healing. I will continue to experience pain as long as I live in my expectations instead of my reality. Today, I am strong enough now to accept the difference between fantasy and reality. I can acknowledge and confront what is causing pain in the past, present, and as we live right now. My acceptance of my reality empowers me to heal and rectify those painful parts of my life. And so in the beginning, sometimes we want to create something that was like 3 short little paragraphs that remind us that you have the power, you have the authority, and there's all kinds of ways to get the ability to free yourself from the pain that's in you. Now, there's a lot of research out there that shows that pain lives in the body and our body bears the burden. There's information all over the place. But I think what matters a lot here is that we are willing and aware, right, to see that something's blocking us from our greater, higher good, our greater, higher happiness or success or satisfaction, or even robbing us of healthy relationships because we've got this junk kind of piled in our system. And so, what I want to talk about a little bit is empowering ourselves to say, well, hold on a minute here. Maybe I've been living with this belief that I can blame other people, or I'm just stuck this way, or I'm just a survivor, into hold on a minute. What if I evict? What if I eject? Right? What if I let go of, in whatever way, the stuff, the pain, the grief, the hurt, the confusion? And what if I allow myself to live in an alignment situation, mind, body, and soul? In fact, I even have a client who calls me her spiritual chiropractor. She goes, when I get off track, I call you, and then I'm all aligned when we're done talking. And I think that that is a key for all of us, that we have somebody we can talk to that helps us get realigned, because life will get us going in all these different directions. It's kind of crazy, but it's true. That's how it works. So I want to talk about some of the things that you might believe that aren't true. And the reason why we believe them is because they're instilled in us before we could defend ourselves. About 75% of our belief systems are instilled in us before we're 2 years old. And for many of us, we're nonverbal. So they're just kind of running until we confront them. Now, if you're gifted and neurodivergent, or you have sensitivities, then some of these things can be exaggerated. The painful parts of your life growing up, some people use the word trauma, which is separation. I look at it as pain. When we have any kind of pain in our life growing up and we do not understand it in an age congruent way, right? Then we will make up a story about it, because there's no such thing as a vacuum in our human consciousness. That's a man-made thing. So what happens is something happens, we don't understand it, so we make up a story. Mom and dad come home and mom is crying and dad is angry. And we as children say, what's wrong, mommy? And you get the response, nothing, honey. What that mother just told you is your reality. What you're seeing in front of you is not true. You cannot trust your own vision, your own understanding, your own connection to your mother. So over time, when mother probably didn't mean to cause that pain, you ended up with pain because you had to tell yourself a story about what that pain meant in order to integrate it into your mind. So if mom is crying and you say, what's wrong, mommy? And she says, nothing, honey. You, the gifted neurodivergent person, and really all people, children, have to make up a story in order to keep going, because that's the way our brain works. It's not because somebody's lying. And so what happens is a mother, I guess, is being deceptive because she's saying nothing when obviously she's crying. But we learn how to not trust ourselves. Now, I lived in that kind of situation growing up, where what was happening with the parents and what they were telling us children was not congruent. So by the time I got to junior high school and high school, I didn't really trust my own reality. That's the kind of pain we're talking about. That's a form of grief. Grief is a conflicting mass of human emotion, right? And can we trust ourselves or not? And so many people I see these days have a hard time trusting what they're seeing and feeling and experiencing because of prior conditioning and current life situations in all of our countries and things everything's so turbulent, like what's real and what isn't. Now, the best way to control a gifted person, the best way to get them indoctrinated into a culture to control them, is to have them question their reality. Because the moment a gifted person who is connected to their reality begins to question if they're sane or not, or if what's happening is real or not, it's easier to control them. Which is why cults go after the smart people a lot of times, because once you get questioning yourself, it's easier to manipulate you. So just realize that if you start questioning yourself in any situation, back up for a minute and get your feet back on the ground and get oriented and then move forward, because something's not right if you're questioning your own reality, if you're questioning your own experience. Something is off. And typically, it's coming from outside of you, triggering something inside of you. In my work with people all the time, I do this. And in the grief recovery weekend experience that I do for people, we do small groups and we do intense work on freeing ourselves from that bondage of old pain that is still impacting our lives today. So, one of the big myths about what we need to do to heal is that feelings are not okay. They're not acceptable somehow. Like, I remember when I was younger, the whole phrase, big boys don't cry. And so my brother is very sensitive, and he ended up getting told all the time, big boys don't cry, you know, and he was sensitive. And crying is a way to release stress. It releases chemicals that help fight cancer. It regulates our sympathetic nervous system. Crying is important part of our physiology. I have many people who started working with me saying, I haven't cried in years. That means their system is constipated. It's blocked up, rendering their emotional and neurological way to heal almost impotent. So crying is healthy. And so to tell the boys that big boys don't cry is a lie, causing them to stuff it. And that creates all kinds of cascading pain through their life. So the idea that feelings are not okay is not true. Your feelings simply are the energy source that tell you you're alive. What you name them, what you do with them is up to you, because we have free will. But it's the energy source that tells you you're alive. If you didn't have feelings, you wouldn't know you were alive. They are important. And to believe that they're not acceptable or not okay, that's not the case. It might have been the case hundreds of years ago, or when different groups in society were trying to survive, and you couldn't be all hysterical or upset when you're just trying to like survive an attack or something. But generally speaking, today, feelings are okay. It is acceptable to say how you feel. It's acceptable to say, wow, I'm having a feeling and I don't have any words for it. In fact, the English language has the fewest number of feeling words of any language. So people who are multilingual often have a better way to express their emotions than people who just speak English. The other thing that I want to talk about, it's a big one, is replacing the loss. Yeah. When my beloved Maggie Labradoodle died, a lot of you who know me know it was very, very sad. I even did a show in her honor. It was horrible. And I had a few people who said, well, just go get another puppy. Yeah, I have a puppy now, but I waited quite some time until all of the grieving, or the majority of the grieving, was done. And I did my own process. And I was ready to love and accept another beautiful animal into my world. So often we replace the loss. We learn it as children or younger, like little kids when they get like the little crushes on the little boy or the little girl in class, right? And oh, there's plenty of fish in the sea. Or you're dating your first person, your first romantic interest in high school, and it doesn't go out the way you think it's going to, right? And then you hear, there's more where that came from, or there's plenty of people, there's billions of people on the planet. Go find someone else. Well, here's what happens. If you go through serial relationships like that, you hold against the next person what you left unhealed for the person before. So if the first person, say, yelled at you all the time and you were always afraid, right? And you didn't heal the pain that caused you. Then when you go date the next person, if ever they go to raise their voice, you're going to hold against this new person what the old person did. And you also could subconsciously create scenarios where this new person is yelling and screaming in order to feel familiar pain. Meaning, I know the rules of this kind of pain, so I'm going to stay here where it is rather than heal and transform. Sadly, many people make that decision. I had an old client from years ago call me several years after I was done working with them, saying, I have all of these issues and all of these things, and can I work with you again? I said, sure. So we set up the day and the time and everything was all set up. And then I think it was the night before, he emails me and says, I'm canceling our appointment. I'm not going to work with you. I know I have a lot of pain. I know I'm miserable, but I'm going to stay right where I am. I don't really feel like doing the work, which was honest. Well, sadly, about 3 years after that, he's no longer on earth. All of that extra pain that he was holding, his body couldn't take it anymore. And sadly, a lot of people choose to stay in that hurt. They play the victim. They make it part of their identity. There's all kinds of ways to do it. And some people do it unconsciously. They just stay in the hurt. And so when we replace the loss, we hold against the next person. So some people can have 3 or 4 or 5 romantic relationships and they wonder why they all go south. I can tell you why. Because you haven't healed the grief along the way. You haven't done your own inner personal work to free yourself from the bondage of the previous issue, whatever that is. Now, some of us have those issues with how our parents treated each other or the big people who raised us, right? Sometimes it's in our own relationships. Sometimes it's a combination. There's lots of different factors here. But what I'm trying to say is the idea of replacing the loss doesn't work. So when you are going through grief and you're trying to replace the loss, it's not going to work if you just go out and buy another dog or buy another cat or get another boyfriend or another girlfriend. It's not going to work. I had a client one time, oh my gosh, I just remember this. And every time she would feel pain about family issues or whatever, she would go buy something expensive like a new car or whatever. And she goes, that adrenaline from buying the new car worked for about a week and now I'm still feeling pain again. And I'm like, well, because it's painful to walk around in pain all the time. Consequences of unresolved grief in our system are internal organ issues like indigestion, heart problems, high blood pressure, that kind of thing. And eventually our system can't handle it. All kinds of research about it. It's important that we realize replacing loss doesn't work. And the only way to deal with loss is to walk through the pain without, you don't want to hang out in the living hell. You want to keep going, right? Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is grieving alone. So many people think that we need to grieve alone. Again, that's not true. Humans are pack animals. We are meant to be in connection with others of the same species. We have been taught in our culture, largely, it's starting to shift now, to grieve alone. That if you're hurting, go deal with it by yourself. I remember when my brother used to get upset, or when I got upset when I was little, was we were sent to our room to cry it out by ourselves. No, that's not the way to do it. Now, I think my parents were well-meaning, and I think many people are well-meaning. But the problem here is that if you're the parent and you have not healed your grief from when you were 6, and your children are now 6, when they're feeling pain, guess what it's going to do? Trigger the unhealed grief in you. That's right. If you have pain from when you were 6 or 7, and when your child or children get that age, if you have not rectified your own inner pain, their pain will trigger the pain in you. And now pretty soon we have a colossal mess. So you're either acting out toward your children because of your pain unconsciously, or you're adding to it or something, or everybody's squashing everything and the system comes to a grinding halt. Regardless, without us doing our own work as adults, our children pay the price. And our friends pay the price and we pay the price. So we want to do the work. Doing it alone is not possible. I deal with gifted people. A lot of gifted people say, in fact, I've had it happen in my grief recovery group. Just give me the notebook, give me all the information, and I will go home and do the work on my own. That doesn't work because we need to be in connection with another human being. In the program of recovery, there's a whole step about sharing the pain with another human being. There's wisdom in that. There are lots of formats. There's therapy. I do a lot of mentoring. I've done counseling too. There's ministry. There's all kinds of things where people can really share their deep pain. Now, it's different with a coaching model because a coaching model is more about getting rid of the block. And not all coaches are skilled in helping somebody rectify and heal grief. So you have to pay attention to who your listener is. Because even if you try to talk to your family about your pain, they may not be able to help you actually rectify and integrate so that you can move forward. They might be able to. You want to use your discernment. Pay attention to who's the person you're choosing to share your grief with. But thinking you need to do it on your own is goofy. It makes no sense and it does not work. Now, if it would have worked, we wouldn't have so much grief and trauma and pain in this world. Doesn't work. The other big thing I want to talk about is give it time. Time heals all wounds. Also, not true. Not true. And I've been teaching this for decades and decades and decades. And I hear people just now starting to talk about it out in social media and things. And it makes me kind of giggle because people who've been working with me already know this. We already know this. Time doesn't heal wounds. So, what does time have to do with it? Time has to do with the fact of how we use our time. Are we taking the time to actually look at what the pain is and examine it and decide how we're going to integrate, rectify, and move forward? Or are we trying to avoid or deny or stuff it and pretend like it's not there? It reminds me of the old Dick Van Dyke Show years ago when I was a little kid. I am now dating myself. There's a scene in the very beginning of the show where he opens a closet door, like a coat closet by his front door of his home, and it is totally full of things and it all falls down on him and it all crashes down on him. That's what happens to us when we keep stuffing pain in. We hold on to this pain. We hold on to that resentment. We hold on to this over here. Oh, mom did that. Dad did that. I don't like this teacher. This little boy did that. Oh, that girl did that. And pretty soon when we look at the pain, we have the experience of, I'm never going to stop crying. Or if I finally talk about it, I don't know what I'll do. It feels so big because there's lots of little things we can't even see that have been there so long that we don't even know they're there until we start uncovering some of the other things. So not to worry, we have the suprasegmental control system, which is part of our nervous system that helps us regulate. It won't let you implode. You'll be okay. You will stop crying. You will be able to manage your anger and your fear and your pain. And it requires connection to another human being. You cannot open the door by yourself and expect all of those things to be integrated and worked through without the connection of another human being or human beings, multiple people. You cannot do it alone. Time itself doesn't do anything. You can sit there while you're listening to me right now and you can remember something from your childhood and feel it in just the same way. I remember the feeling when I had to go near my step-grandfather, who was very scary for me and very gruff and very controlling. And I was a sensitive, shy, introverted, gifted girl. And he was not scary in a mean way, but more in a gruff way. You know, like he wasn't abusive, but he was gruff. And they all ascribed it to the fact that he was Pennsylvania Dutch. I didn't know what that meant when I was a little girl, but what I did know is that he was scary. And so as I grew and I had to keep going through things that were scary, I had an aunt who was related to him that was scarier than he was. And it was all these things. And so I learned at a very early age that you had to approach people who you were afraid of or you got warning signs about. And so I had to unlearn all of that and learn how to trust my own decision making. Because my parents, well-meaning, required me to hug this person, talk to this person, and be around this person who scared me. So there's a lot of healing, a lot of complicated emotions as we get older to events that happened, not because anybody was consciously doing anything wrong. When you have an overexcitability or you're neurodivergent, the world impacts you differently. So therefore, you have to heal yourself and empower yourself differently than the average person. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the whole idea of not trusting. Now, for me, trust is consistency over time. But I think for most people, trust has to do with, can I rely on you? Are you somebody who's trustworthy? Well, what I tend to say is I watch your behavior, I watch what's going on, and whatever your behavior is consistently over a period of time, that's what I can trust. So if you're always late, then 5 minutes late to anything we plan, then I just know you're going to be 5 minutes late and I can trust that. Right. But I also think what happens when we're trying to heal and we're trying to release the painful parts of our life that are impacting our work, our world, our happiness, is we want to make sure that we get rid of that whole don't trust somebody. So what happens is, how do I say this? Oh, let's go and cause trouble before they can cause trouble to me. So it's the person who's at work and they think they're in trouble and they can't trust their boss or they can't trust the company. And so they go, okay, I'll quit before they fire me, whether they were going to be fired or not. Like, I will break up with you so that you don't have the chance to break up with me. I can't trust my own reality. I can't trust the situation. And so I'm going to end it so you don't have the chance to. I see that all the time. And what that comes from is old pain, old grief that's unhealed, that's just swirling around, messing up the system. And most likely it's been with you for so long and it's so familiar that you don't know what you would do without it. Again, the reason why you need to work with a person to have them help you. Because when somebody else holds that space with you and helps reflect back things and helps teach you different ways, you become free of the old pain, the old grief from before. Hope this is making sense. So when we empower ourselves and we begin to say, okay, I have the authority and the power and the sovereignty to look at my life and heal whatever places of pain are impacting me in a way today that are undesirable for me. So I don't try to look at it as it's wrong or it's bad or any of those things. I try to say, okay, well, if that's getting in my way, what do I need to get back in alignment? What do I need to do to rectify or heal that area? Now, the interesting thing is there's no finish line. There's always something to work on, and we're never done. So my gifted people, and I'm guilty of this too, when I started my self-discovery and self-transformation journey in my 20s, I thought, okay, well, I'll be done by the time I'm whatever age. Well, I'm much older than that now, and I'm still working on things. Because the truth is, as long as we're in a human body, we're always working on something, or we're given the opportunity to work on something. So the question is, are we seeking the opportunity that's being presented to us to free ourselves from the old stuff? Now, sadly, in our culture, there's a lot of people who don't free themselves from the stuff. They stay stuck. So we all have free will. We all have our own choices. We all have the ability to say, this is how I'm going to move forward in my life. So I ask you, how are you going to do it? Are you going to be empowered to heal the painful parts of your life? Are you going to seek support and people who can support you and help you? Are you going to allow yourself to be emotionally vulnerable in a safe way so that you can no longer be run by an old tape, an old experience, an old situation on into your elder years? What are you going to do, right? Like, I remember a personal story is when I was in third grade, my mom was a great artist and I had this homework assignment, and I never thought I was very creative, like drawing wise. I can do creative things, but I never could draw really, like, something beautiful. She could design clothes and things, like, it was crazy. And so she helped me with the project a little bit. I did it. And she said to do this, honey, and try it this way. And so I did it and I took it to school. And my third grade teacher said to me directly that I don't have any creative skill and that I should do something else with my life. Now, I was sensitive, gifted, had undiagnosed ADHD, and I was neurodivergent. All those things weren't even words then. But what happened? I integrated the idea that, I don't have any creative skill. And so it went into me and I shut down even further. And it wasn't until many years later where I was actually working with somebody in a professional setting where they were my client and they were very creative. And I said something kind of off the top of my head that I wasn't creative. And this person threw their hand back and said, really? and started pointing out all the creative things that this person had experienced from me and how that was a lie. So I had a choice. Still believe that third grade teacher and that belief that I am not creative that had followed me for decades. And I kind of just thought that's the way life was at the time. And then that person responding that way kind of like shook the system. And I was like, well, wait a second, maybe I am creative. And then I started seeing that really all along, including then, I've been very creative, and that my innocent, sensitive third grade little girl didn't know any different because an authority figure said something. It had to be true. And just because an authority figure person says something doesn't make it true. But there was no adult, no parent, no nobody to help me integrate that or teach me differently until one day when I ran into that belief system, I had the opportunity to realign my life and heal that part, which I did. I did the work. I didn't say that time heals it because time didn't heal it. What did heal it was me understanding, having awareness of the situation, and then choosing to do something differently. So I invite you to all the blocks in your life, all the stuff that you've got crammed in there, to begin to make the decision, to become aware and to become willing to free yourself little by little from the trances, from the pain, from the old grief. Because we live in a society that for decades and generations has tried to stop that work. So now it's time that we do it. It's time we do something that's good for us. It's time we empower ourselves to heal the painful parts of our lives. So as always, right, you can reach out to me. I'll do a get to know you call. I am happy to give you more information or help you with this topic. The key though is to love on yourself and trust yourself to say, okay, I can find a solution to the things that have been holding me back emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, work-wise, everywise. It's time that we all begin to stand in the beauty of who we are. Because remember, you're beautiful, you're lovable, and you're capable. And remember this, I am empowered to heal the painful parts of my life. Until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you are a rock star. You are here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So I invite you to go out there and let your light shine. Peel away the old grief and let yourself stand in the beautiful light of who you are. Until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, this is Dianne saying, be well,